Can't decide and torn between a romantic, comedy, action, or an indie film to watch for the weekend? Well. Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast is your ultimate guide to the latest movies. Join us as we dissect the latest on the blockbusters. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Movie Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Elizabeth Aaron. I hope you enjoyed your Independence Day weekend. As I'm sure is true for so many of us, we're used to spending the 4th of July being out with friends and family, or having a picnic or a barbecue, or going to the beach and swimming, playing frisbee, catch, or volleyball. And seeing as we're more limited in what we can do as we shelter in place, I decided to watch some films that have to do with some things that I wish I was more able to do right now, which is move. I watched some movies that are connected with sports or athleticism. And truth be told, I love watching characters rise to an occasion, and competitive sports tend to bring out that quality in us. So today we will be covering 3 films that I would put in what I call the understated sports genre. Sports play a role in the film as a vehicle for moving the story forward, but they are not the complete focus. First up, I'll be reviewing the film Hunter in the Blue Side of Manchester, which is new out this year on Netflix, and it touches on soccer or English football. Then I'll be looking at 2 films on Amazon Prime. In the second segment of the show, I'll be looking at the film The Nomads, where rugby is the main sport. And in the third segment of the show, I'm going to look at the film Baseball and the Ballerina, where baseball is the central sport. And stick around to the end of the show to hear 10 of my personal favorite understated sports films. Now let's dive in. As I mentioned, the first movie I'm going to cover is called Hunter in the Blue Side of Manchester. And I see this as potentially a buddy picture. It's definitely an underdog picture, and it's connected to sports. But we actually don't see any athletic games being played. I'd say this film actually focuses more on the game of life. And Netflix characterizes it as a biography and a drama. And it's actually a foreign film. It's mostly in English, but it is considered an Indonesian film, and I've never seen an Indonesian film before, so I was excited to check this one out. You may like this movie if you're interested in seeing someone struggle as they enter a new phase of professional life, or if you're interested in the prestige of British football, or if you just like underdog movies. It's rated TV-MA, meaning it's for mature audiences, and it was originally released on February 6th of this year. The director is Rako Prijanto. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He is known also for the films Oh My God, Pre-Man in Love, and The Clerics. Tetian Watamina wrote the screenplay, and it's based on the novel by Hanif Thamrin. So the movie is an adaptation of the novel, and is based on his real life. He was the former international content producer at the English Premier League club in Manchester City. So there were 3 key actors, and I hope I'm not going to butcher these names. There's Adipati Dolken, and he played Hanif, who is the protagonist. And then there's Ganendra Bhimo, who plays the protagonist's best friend, Pringa. And then there's Maurice Byrne, who plays the character named Chappie, and I'll get into these characters in a little bit. And all of these actors are building their careers. Adipati Dolken has been in the film The Clerics, Koala Kamal, and The Fugitive. Ganendra Bhimo has been in the films Gangster, Midnight Show, and Headshot. And Maurice Byrne has been in the films Adieu Marx and Oh My God. And as I mentioned, I saw this film streaming on Netflix. Here is the description that Netflix gives of this film. To get his career in the game, he doesn't have to play on the field, but he does need to find his way into the press room. To honor his father, a diligent college graduate takes on the daunting goal of becoming a reporter for an English Premier League soccer club. This movie tells the story of Hanif Thamrin, known as Nif, and as I mentioned, played by Adipati Dolken. So he left home in Indonesia to study broadcast journalism and pursue his dream to become the first Indonesian to work in the biggest soccer league in the world, the English Premier League. It is a big deal for him to be a part of this soccer or football league. Football is huge all over the world, so this means he has truly made the big time, especially back in Indonesia. Adipati Dolken, the actor, was deeply into his role. I connected to him and all of the nuanced feelings he had. There were moments just before he had flashbacks that could have been a little saccharine, but he kept it real. He didn't hold back. It was refreshing to see a male actor break down and really cry when the going got tough for him. It felt like the audience was in on his secret when this happened, and it allowed us to truly connect to his character. He also has this kind of cool, though also vulnerable appearance that sucked me in. I just liked him based on how he looked, and I wanted to keep liking him. Now, Ganindra Bimo, who plays Hanif's wealthy best friend, Pringa, he did a good job, though in contrast to Adipati's real grounded character, Pringa seemed a little unrealistically over the top at times. It was fun to see the two play off of each other and act like brothers or children at times, though at other times it felt like they were not doing it to stay in character, but just to play to the camera. This movie surprised me. I decided to watch it because it had an unusual name. It stood out to me. And I'm not sure I completely understand at least what Hunter in the title stands for. Maybe it refers to the fact that Hanif was on a hunt for his own identity while going after his dream. Or maybe it was even that it was an inexact translation from an Indonesian word. I don't know. But after seeing the opening, I thought the movie was going to be deeply about soccer and be a formulaic film about players needing to improve their game, but it wasn't, and I was truly surprised. The concept of what makes soccer or British football great provides context for the film, but really, it's about a young man's struggle to rightfully earn his place as an Indonesian man in the press office of this famous soccer league. The story gets better and better as the movie goes on, and I became more involved. I love how the script went deep with the characters. It got into Hanif's life, and second most into Pringa's life. When I define a buddy movie, I think of the two characters constantly being together on a journey. Although these two friends are not constantly together in this film, they are emotionally dependent on each other, like family. So the argument could be made that this is kind of a buddy movie. And just like two brothers who will clash, these two friends had to keep finding their way back to each other because they loved each other and they needed each other, and it was beautiful to watch. This is by far a male-dominated film. All the most positive and meaningful relationships are with men. It is a relief when Hanif meets Chappie, a retired player who finds the soccer league and community still central to his life. He, I believe, is based on a real soccer player who grew to great fame. Maurice Byrne, as I mentioned, plays Chappie, and he is great. He becomes a mentor and a friend to Hanif, as well as like a surrogate father in some ways, which is something Pringa cannot be to Hanif, but is what Hanif needs. I am struck by how alone and lonely Hanif is, and it's not really until Chappie comes along do we see that Hanif is willing to recognize he can ask for help, and he can offer it too. Chappie helps him open up and is someone Hanif can truly be vulnerable with. Chappie's words of wisdom provide a more practical approach to life than wisdom Hanif tries to remember from his late father. I found a lot of things worked in this film. As Hanif tries to find his way and hits obstacles, at times there are just little moments that tell us so much about him and help round out his character. Like when he cooks, when he prays, when he sits alone in the football stadium. The nuggets of information provided here are golden. The conflicts that come up between him and Pringa were believable to me. They worked the same issues between them over and over, and that happens in real life, and all you can do is keep trying to bridge the gap as much as possible. And that's what they do. They choose their need for each other and their love for each other over the petty things that come up and set them off. I don't want to give it away, but Hanif's father left him a gift that holds a lot of meaning for him. It is almost as if the item that was left to him holds the memory he has of his father and is there for his support. This gift will take on a whole new meaning over time, and it's almost a character in itself. The script does a really good job of folding this into the story. I kept wanting to know if Hanif was going to make it work. I wanted to see what was going to happen next and how he was going to resolve things for himself if they didn't go right. I was constantly hooked in anticipation. There are a number of important messages that come out in this film. One of the most important is that you can't succeed without growing pains. And we see Hanif on a journey of lots of growing pains. We learn about his character, what he can endure, and what people mean to him. Overall, it was a story I wanted to watch unfold. It was a joy seeing Hanif's character develop, including his vulnerability and his courage. That said, there were quite a few things in the film that I feel didn't quite work. The opening felt a little rough to me. The acting and the beginning scenes felt choppy, to the point where I almost didn't stick with watching the rest of the movie. I'm glad I did. I think it was well worth it. But just know that if you decide to watch this film, be patient and forgiving at the start. The information the opening scenes provide is really important for the rest of the film. And then there were just some holes. Like, Hanif just finished his master's degree at the beginning of the film, but he was still borrowing Pringa's computer. He had to have had his own computer to get through graduate school. Also at the beginning, Hanif introduces Pringa to a classmate of his. But if he's been in school for a while and it's a small community, it seems that Pringa would have already met this person before. And in the setup, Hanif applies to only one job and is told that it will take up to 2 months before he hears whether he got it or not. There had to have been other jobs that could have fulfilled his dream that he could have applied for, and a 2-month wait seemed unrealistic. There are also a number of flashbacks used in the film to show Hanif as a child with his father. For me, the jury is still out whether these were effective or not. They served their purpose, but there were enough of them that they became a bit of a distraction for me, and they also seemed to have a repeating pattern. And young Hanif would learn new information from his father and keep learning it. It would have worked better if he went deeper into learning one lesson over and over that he needed in order to succeed in adulthood. Also, a big deal is being made about Hanif keeping a promise he made to his father. Though because of a number of flashbacks with his father, it wasn't completely clear to me what the promise was that he made. And seeing how integral it was to the film, I felt like that didn't quite work. Another thing interesting to look at is the role of women in the film. There were only a few women. There was this blonde British young woman who played Pringa's girlfriend, Charlotte. She hardly said anything, and I didn't have a sense of what made her interested in Pringa, how they met, or that there was any real chemistry between them. Then there were the 2 women who interviewed Hanif for the job in the press office, one of whom would be Hanif's supervisor. And this particular character plays several extreme notes, but rarely do we see her as an ordinary human being. It is in a great contrast to the other main characters, and it would be helpful if there was something that backed up why she behaved the way she did. And earlier on in the film, there is a woman that is Hanif's mother, though after doing some research, I think it might actually have been his sister. It was unclear. And if it was his sister, then it occurred to me that maybe his father was raising him by himself. This just provides more questions than answers at this point. And she plays a woman who lets him off the hook for pushing so hard to go after his dream, and suggests that maybe he should just come home to Indonesia if he wants to. So women are not painted in a very positive light in this film, at least in terms of Hanif going after what he really wants to do. I also wonder why Hanif does not search out women to date. He seems envious of Pringa having a girlfriend. I kept thinking that it might happen to him, and I kept being disappointed that it didn't. Also, there was a point where Hanif makes a big mistake, and I don't want to completely believe he would have made that mistake. The stakes were too high for him to mess up, and he's too smart to do that. By the end of the movie, I felt like I knew these characters well, and I cared about them. And the film wrapped up in a great way. I felt pretty complete. Would I recommend this film? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a fantastic, flawless film, I'd give this one a 6. It definitely has its flaws, but it also makes up for them in the character development and in the twists and turns the story takes. It is a recommend, with a note to forgive some of its flaws, especially at the beginning. Now, stay tuned for the next segment of the show, when I'll be looking at the film The Nomads after the break.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. It keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Thanks for joining in for the second segment of the show. In the last segment, I talked about the film Hunter and the Blue Side of Manchester. I'm now going to discuss the film The Nomads. I saw The Nomads on Amazon Prime, and it's free with the Amazon Prime subscription. It's described as a drama and also comes under the sport genre. And what Amazon says about the film is, amidst the chaos of massive budget cuts and school closures, a newly appointed teacher introduces men's rugby to an inner-city North Philadelphia high school. And that is a pretty good quick summary. Now, the film has been nominated for Best Feature Film and Best Local Feature at the 2019 Philadelphia Film Festival. And it won the Favorite Narrative Feature at the Napa Valley Film Festival in 2019. So that says something positive about it already. I think you may like this movie if you like films about struggling schools and communities, underdog movies, and watching characters of young men grow and mature. This film is rated TV-14, so it's good for young teens and up. It was released on October 27th of 2019. It's an hour and 37 minutes, so it's a little bit more than the normal hour and a half. This film was directed and produced by Brandon Eric Kamen. It was written by Tara Miele. And among the key actors are Tika Sumpter, who plays the protagonist Cassie McNamara, who is the teacher and the coach that starts the rugby team. Tate Donovan, who's another teacher and helps her with coaching. Christopher Mann, who plays the principal. And Marla Mendel, who plays Cassie's best friend and roommate, Kate. According to the Internet Movie Database, this is the first and only film that Brandon Eric Kamen has directed, and I hope that we'll be seeing more of him in the future. This film was well done. And what else are some of the actors known for? The lead, Tika Sumpter, was part of a team that won Best Chicago Film for the movie South Side with You at the Chicago Independent Film Critics Circle Awards, and received nominations for several others. She's also been in the films Sparkle, Tyler Perry's A Medea Christmas, Nobody's Fool, and Sonic the Hedgehog. Tate Donovan, who plays Mark Nolan, won an Emmy for Outstanding Short Format Nonfiction Program for 30 for 30 Shorts. He's been in Rocketman, The Upside, Elvis and Nixon, Argo, and Nancy Drew. Christopher Mann has won Best Supporting Actor at the Philadelphia Film Festival in 2019 for the film What Death Leaves Behind. He's been in the films Loving, The Bourne Legacy, Duplicity, and Michael Clayton. And Marla Mandel was in the film Are You Joking? And she's been in a lot of television, including City of Dreams and Special. The movie The Nomads was inspired by a true story. The setup at the start of the film is that in 2013, the Philadelphia School District faced a budget deficit of over $1.35 billion. Officials were forced to consider the closure of many struggling public schools, and the decision displaced more than 30,000 students and terminated nearly 4,000 teaching jobs. And Cassie McNamara and her best friend and roommate Kate were among the teachers who were laid off. But Kate gets a good position at a private school, and Cassie has decided to take a job at Whitman High. She'll be teaching history even though her specialty is English, and it's going to be tough with the student population growing exponentially as a result of the cutbacks. Not to mention Whitman is in a really bad section of town. On her first day at Whitman, Cassie meets another new teacher. His name is Mark Nolan, and he'll be teaching math instead of his specialty of science, so they have in common that they're not teaching their main subject. The two connect, and Nolan checks in on Cassie to see how she's doing after a few weeks. And Cassie reports that there have been a number of fights, there's been a fire, there's disciplinary problems, and more. And as they get chatting, they realize not only do they have rugby in common, but they also have Cassie's adoptive father in common. He was a renowned rugby coach, and he taught Cassie how to play rugby, and he taught Mark Nolan how to coach rugby. After reminiscing about their experiences about playing rugby, Cassie spearheads a plan to start a rugby team. She's aware of how the sport can teach the boys life lessons, and also give them the potential to get a scholarship that they might not normally have had an opportunity for. And it could also help the boys feel connected and supported. So after a great recruiting effort by Cassie and Nolan, 7 high school boys opt to sign up to play rugby, and eventually things start to turn around for them. On their journey of learning and playing the sport, which calls for absolute integrity, and looking out for the team members, there are twists and turns, ups and downs that keep you on the journey with the students and the coaches every step of the way to see what is going to happen next. I liked the acting quite a bit in this film. The characters had a good banter, they changed how they acted based on their circumstances, and I loved that the lead in the story was a black woman who made a difference, and that it was a white man who was supporting her. This could easily have been his story, as he knew a lot about rugby too and had been a coach as well, but it is her story, and I think considering the times that we're in right now, that is just perfect. I liked the chemistry between Cassie and Nolan, and at first I thought there might even be some romantic thread that was going to form. But later we learned that Nolan was an adult when Cassie's father was training him to be a coach, and that was at the time that Cassie was just adopted and she was probably just a baby. So between the age difference and the need to be professional, the relationship did stay platonic. I appreciated that the film didn't distract by using that chemistry that way, and that it stayed on task. Sometimes it can be hard in a film to pull off a coincidence seeming real. And in this case, based on the writing of the script and how the actors played these roles, I fell for that coincidence about how they both had a connection to Cassie's father. It was believable, and is a mark of a good film. Overall, it felt like the acting went very smoothly. The characters meshed well together, and so it was good casting. In terms of the story and the script, well, this was a formulaic story. I've seen bits and pieces of the circumstances in this film many times over in other films. And these teachers and students encounter the same kinds of obstacles we've seen over and over. What is different is how a couple of teachers chose to help their students deal with the new pressures that resulted from changes in the school system. I've never seen a film where the solution was creating a rugby team, so that was refreshing. There's a lot that worked in this film. Although it is pretty formulaic, one thing that worked is that it showed how it affected only 7 to 8 kids. Although this had a great impact on the whole, the film didn't bite off more than it could chew by demonstrating that it changed an entire school overnight, which I've seen other movies with a similar genre try to do. And this is also great because you get to know a few members of the team better. and appreciate what they overcome as their trust in the team grows. I also found it refreshing that the sport was used to help these kids become adept at how they would choose to approach their lives, rather than it be about a group of kids who had to try to get on and stay on a team. I won't give it away, but at one point, as a part of the formula for films like this, you wonder if the team that Nolan and Cassie are creating will survive. I had forgotten about a conversation earlier in the film that set up an expectation that something could happen to the team. Because the characters of Cassie and Nolan were so well acted, I believed that they had everything tied up, and this setup then really worked well. And I look for these kinds of traps in movies all the time, and if I miss them, I feel like on some level the movie succeeded. A good portion of the film looks at several of the high school students who become a part of the team. 3 characters in particular we see more in depth. The character of Jamie, played by actor Thomas Pierce, has the biggest role of these high school characters. He has the biggest story arc of the teammates. At one point, there's a scene where he divulges information about his family situation that stood out to me because it worked so well. It was formulaic but done in such a refreshing and understated way that I actually believed it. Also, Jamie gets wrapped up in some old trouble that haunts him, and the director did a great job of taking his time and introducing the characters behind the trouble to us. He created a great setup and follow-through that had me gradually learn more and more about Jamie and his circumstances. The director trusted that the audience would follow the story breadcrumbs he was leaving for us, and I enjoyed picking up every breadcrumb that he left. Another character that's a student is Khalil. He's played by Devon Ray, and he had the next biggest student role. He also goes through a transformation. In this case, he learns to trust others to help him, and he learns to trust himself and his abilities and how to find his power. Khalil is the kind of character you start out liking from the get-go. He's a really good guy, and you just don't judge him, and you want good things to happen to him. As a result, you stay hooked because you really want to see him get the good things that he should have coming to him. The third student that gave a noteworthy performance was played by Andy Riddle, and the student was nicknamed Tuna. This is the character that provides the comic relief. He's a redhead, freckled face, sticks out like a sore thumb among all of his classmates, and he likes to eat, and this keeps getting him into trouble. But at one point he's put in a situation where he feels highly responsible for something tragic that happens, and we get to see him grow and deepen. I like that we got to see that with the court jester of this film. Another role that I'd like to talk about is that of Principal Wade. While he had a small part, he was very believable. He carried an authority that was true of a principal. In that regard, he garnered a kind of respect, and it was nice to see how the teachers would work with him over time, and they built a trusting relationship. Kind of a I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. And it was lovely to see a principal really try to champion these teachers. So often in films like these, I see the principal playing the part of the naysayer, always saying no to the teachers so they never quite get what they want. But in this case, the principal played a nuanced role, and I think it worked very well. There are also a few things that didn't work in the film. As I mentioned before, the fact that the film is formulaic in terms of both sports movies and struggling school system movies, it made some aspects of what was coming a bit predictable. Also, the character of Kate, who is Cassie's best friend and roommate, didn't really work for me. From the start, I sensed that she was a bit snarky and seems only to look out for herself. I wondered what drew Cassie to like her and to have her as a friend. Cassie is a very thoughtful person. She thinks ahead about others and has some big life lessons that she has had under her belt. And Kate, although she thinks of Cassie, she only thinks about what is right for Cassie and not what Cassie really wants. And while they call each other best friends, we don't see them interact other than as roommates and their home. Something else that I had an issue with is that Cassie also had her act completely together. There wasn't much messiness in her life. There was a personal issue around a rift with her mother, but even that seemed neat and tidied up. And Cassie's home was spotless and organized. I didn't really buy that considering she has to learn about a new topic to teach, she's coaching after school, and then there's just plain life. There is a point in the movie where Cassie has a kind of wake-up call. And although this played out well, I didn't actually buy it either. Her character is so accomplished that the particular blind spot that came out wasn't one that I believed. So it seemed to me something needed to be reframed to make that part believable. When I think about the film overall, well, it was just over an hour and a half. And by the time it was over, I felt like a lot of time had passed, in a good way. I was very absorbed in the story, and I got caught up in its timeline that happened over several months. And the film also covered a lot of territory quite quickly. It definitely transported me to another time and place. And in a way, I left the film feeling complete. I appreciated that this film has a sports theme. Even though teaching these kids rugby is a big part of the film, I love that it is not the main thrust of the film. It's less about winning and losing and needing to be a champion. So often in sports films, the storyline is to be the winner, and it can be easy to forget why anyone wants to become the winner other than not being the loser. In this case, the emphasis is on how the game is played as a metaphor for how to live your life. The audience gets to see this metaphor play out in action, and not just for the kids, but for every person who touches the team in some way. In that way, this film is so much more than a typical sports movie. It is indeed about how the human spirit can work to rise above the most challenging circumstances. And that's one of the things I liked most about this film. If I were to choose adjectives to describe it, I'd say that it was heartening, hopeful, refreshing, and easy to watch. Meanwhile, there were some things that I didn't like about the film. I didn't like that it was formulaic. But I'm also not going to hold it against the film, because I think it succeeded in pulling off what it needed to. Would I recommend the film? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic, yes, I'd recommend the film, and overall, I'd give it an 8. Stay tuned for the next segment of the show, when I'll be looking at the film Baseball and the Ballerina after the break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome to the third segment of the show. In the last segment, I talked about the film The Nomads. I'm now going to discuss the film Baseball and the Ballerina. This film falls into the comedy, drama, and family categories. I saw this film on Amazon Prime, and it was free with a subscription. It's rated PG, and it was released on Amazon under the name Baseball and the Ballerina, but previously it had the name A Little Inside, and originally it came out in 2002. When I started watching it, I thought the film seemed a little dated in terms of picture quality, and it didn't make sense that Amazon listed it as 2016, which is still relatively recent. When I saw that it was released under another name at an earlier time, that made a lot of sense. That said, I'm glad that it was re-released. I think the movie held up, and this is an unusual film and it's worth the re-release. The film was written and directed by Kara Harshbarger. According to the Internet Movie Database, this is the only film that she's directed. I hope someday she'll do something else because it was very well done. And in fact, it won the Best Feature Film for Drama at the 2002 New York International Independent Film and Video Festival. The main actors in the film are Hallie Eisenberg, Benjamin King, Frankie Faison, Kathy Baker, and Amanda Detmer. In this film, Hallie Eisenberg plays the child. She is Abby, the daughter of the protagonist Eddie Mills. Eisenberg has been in films such as The Insider, Bicentennial Man, How to Eat Fried Worms, Holy Rollers, and according to the Internet Movie Database, you may also recognize her from a Pepsi commercial. Her brother Jesse Eisenberg was an Academy Award nominee for the movie The Social Network. Benjamin King, who plays Eddie Mills, was in Lethal Weapon 4, SWAT, You Are Here, and he's been on a lot of television, including the shows Grey's Anatomy, NCIS, CSI, Scrubs, and 6 Feet Under. Frankie Faison plays the baseball coach, and he has been seen in Ragtime, Coming to America, Mississippi Burning, and The Silence of the Lambs. Kathy Baker, who plays Eddie Mills and Abby's neighbor, has won 5 Golden Globes for Best Performance of an Actress in a Television Series drama for the show Picket Fences, and she has had other nominations as well. And besides a lot of television, she was in the films Cold Mountain, 13 Going on 30, The Jane Austen Book Club, and Saving Mr. Banks. And lastly, Amanda Detmer has been in the films The Majestic, You and Me and Dupree, Lady Driver, and she's been on a number of television shows like Empire, The Mentalist, and Private Practice. Here's how the Internet Movie Database described the film. A professional baseball player tries to single-handedly raise his young daughter while pursuing his own dreams. That doesn't completely encompass what this film is about. It's about a man who loses his wife and has to raise his daughter single-handedly. To take on this big responsibility, he gives up on his dreams. He has a clear talent for baseball, but eventually he plays with the notion that maybe he can still go after his dreams, and he struggles to ensure that his daughter is cared for, that her needs are met, and that their bond and relationship stays strong as he tries to move forward in pursuing his dream. It's actually a rather complex story, and the film really manages to pull it off. To go a little bit more in depth about this story, it is about Eddie Mills. He is a star who was on the minor league baseball team called the Clippers in Columbus, Ohio, and he blew away everyone in the local community with his ability. Everyone thought it was just a matter of time before he'd make it to the major leagues. And then a car accident happens. His wife was killed, and he becomes a single dad to his 7-year-old daughter, Abby. Eventually, we learn that he spent the last 5 years as a car mechanic, pushing down his desire to play ball, as well as his dream of being part of the major leagues. He feels he has to do this in order to take care of Abby. And he also probably needs the time to grieve. He comes to rely on his neighbor Nancy, who is played by Kathy Baker. As a single middle-aged woman, she is happy to take care of Abby. And in fact, she's more comfortable with it than he is. Nancy seems a bit needy. And I think underneath it all, she has her own dreams. She wished that she had had a family, and it seems that her dreams had been dashed. Also, Eddie gets to know Sarah, a mom of a friend of Abby's, and it turns out she had gone to high school with Eddie, but they didn't hang out in the same crowd, even though they did share at least one class together. Now adults, they are both single parents, and it seems like there is some potential for a relationship, but the path to forming that relationship becomes a little bit bumpy. Now, at the garage where Eddie is working, a new employee is hired. It's a young man by the name of Matt. and he and his family were huge fans of Eddie when he played baseball, and he keeps egging Eddie on to get back into the game. At first, Eddie is really annoyed by this, but eventually something wakes up inside him from all this prompting, and he takes steps toward reconnecting with his dream. But it is at the expense of giving Abby the proper attention because he has to be on the road. So this film gives us an inside look at each of these relationships and how Eddie, who seems to be the only eligible bachelor in the town, can manage keeping what little he has of his family left protected and together. This is not your typical sports film. It was not stereotypical. And though often films use the death of a parent to create a challenge, in this case, it was dealt with as if it was real, and it was not sappy. It didn't try to milk all kinds of emotion from that. And as a result, it actually had an unexpected emotional impact. For example, the fact that there is not a mother, Eddie keeps connecting with different women, and in each case, it brings up the feelings and the issues that he experiences of not having his wife. It makes it glaringly obvious that he misses her. As does Abby. As I am also an actor, I deeply appreciate the level of work that the actors did on this film. They went deep, and they pull off making this film go seamlessly. Kathy Baker as Nancy worked. What an amazing job she did. She was so believable as a lonely woman who broke boundaries and tried to weasel her way into the lives of this father and daughter. She did it in such a way that she became a character that you would love to hate, and yet you had compassion for her, and you didn't want any harm to come to her. And Benjamin King really pulled off being a man who was trying to find his way through being the best parent he could be to Abby. He seemed to have moments of cluelessness, feeling lost without a wife, and having moments of discovering when he should step in. His daughter Abby is not doing well at baseball and decides she wants to do ballet instead. There's a scene where after Abby has been to one ballet class, Eddie suggests that ballet was worth a try in hopes that she would decide to go back to baseball and that really was her thing. And she makes it very clear that she plans to keep doing ballet. Visually, you see Eddie struggle with his disappointment and trying to meet Abby where she is at, even though it is not where he wants her to be. Also, he shows a true sense of his mixed feelings about Nancy. She is his nosy neighbor. He feels he has to rely on her, even though he doesn't want to. You could see it in his awkwardness and his hesitations. Benjamin King is also believable in showing off his character's blind spots. Like, he wants Abby to want to play baseball because that's his dream. There's a funny scene where after Abby has quit baseball, he goes and talks to Abby's baseball coach and tries to come up with a plan about how to lure her back into the game. Luckily, the coach sees what's really happening, and he gives Eddie the brutal truth. It's both a humorous and poignant scene. What's great to see, though, is how Eddie is open to waking up. He wants to fix these gaps in his understanding and these blind spots that he has. Now, Amanda Detmer plays a divorced mom who grew up in the same town and went to high school with Eddie. She's super real and in the moment, and she's just lovely to watch as she tries to piece together how to connect with Eddie, who seems to be a real catch. She faces the fact that when she reintroduces herself as someone he had shared a class with in high school, he has no idea who she was. It's an awkward moment both for her and for Eddie. And she carries the notion that she probably liked him back in high school, too. And we see Eddie feeling awkward about letting her down. She has a relatively small part, though she makes it memorable with scenes like this that really show her to be a multi-dimensional character. And Frankie Faison makes a great coach. He's no nonsense, and knows in his bones Eddie should be in the big leagues. He pulls off a sense of pride, of feeling lucky that he's Eddie's coach, so you get the connection between the two of them and what they mean to each other. So the casting of this film is great. Between the great job the actors have done and what has to be amazing writing in the script, I saw nuances and depth in the emotions in this film that I have not seen in a very long time. Each character seamlessly impacts each other to push all their buttons in a way that helps you feel compassion for each of them. It is very well rounded, and you get to experience a whole symphony of the emotional range of these characters, and you get to go on quite a ride with them. Now, there are a few things that I feel didn't quite work in the film. First, child actors can be great, and the character of Abby, who is 7, carries her large role well, and I should say consistently throughout the film. But not everything about her was believable. She seemed to go with the flow with all of the change more easily than I would have expected, and she was thrown into a lot of change. Also, I'm not sure how the writer would have shown it, but I would have wanted Eddie to show a little bit more about how torn up he is while being on the road and leaving Abby behind with Nancy. And then another point. Eddie apparently lives in this Ohio town where he grew up. I found it strange that at a time when he needs help in looking after Abby, that his family or his deceased wife's family are not around to assist. It seems that they would be all for Eddie seeing his dreams coming true and helping to raise their granddaughter. It could be that they're all also deceased, but unlikely. I would also bet that at least a few of his friends from his school days would be around to help out. Ideally, there would have at least been mention of why these possibilities couldn't happen. That would help fill this gap in the story and make it more realistic. But other than that, I think the film worked quite well. So another reflection is later in the movie, there is a scene where Eddie is on the road with the ball team. At a restaurant, he overhears a group of women talking about their struggles with parenting. Eddie can hardly hold back from getting in on this conversation, and eventually he just pulls his chair over and joins them. He wants to share and seems to relish in having people to connect with who relate to the struggles of being a single parent. This movie is chock full of scenes like this, well-crafted, well-paced, well-placed, and it shows us more and more about the characters so we care more and more about them along their journey. I really liked this movie. I didn't expect to. I thought at first it was going to have a family-friendly Disney quality with a name like Baseball and the Ballerina. I was happily surprised to find it is a slice of life that shows the love of the game is important when it is your calling, and that it is as important as the people in your life. And everything must work together, and it's messy. It shows the messiness of relationships, the resilience of people under challenging circumstances, and that you don't need a typical formulaic story to follow for a film to be eye-opening and memorable. So clearly, I would recommend this film. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic, well, I would give it a 10. This is a subtle film, and it may not be for everyone, but for what the film is and it sets out to do, yeah, I would give it a 10. Now, stay tuned for the final segment of the show when I'll be sharing my 10 personal favorite understated sports films.
Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Welcome to the last segment of the show. In the prior segment, I looked at the movie Baseball and the Ballerina. In this segment, I'm going to share 10 personal favorite understated sports films. And what I mean by understated is that the main story is not about achieving the goal of the sport. So for example, a movie might be about somebody entering a figure skating championship or a marathon, and you watch the movie to see if they can actually win. In the movies that I'm talking about, well, these are movies where what the protagonist is trying to accomplish is not just the sport. It's bigger than that, though the sport plays an important role or is a key symbol in the character's growth. So here are my 10 choices. The first is The Best of Man. You'd like this movie if you like movies that have to do with leadership and changing people's minds. It's a biography, and to give you a summary, it's a factually based film about a neurosurgeon who fled Germany in World War II, and he works with paralyzed soldiers who feel they no longer have any use in the world, and he helps transform them into hopeful men by introducing them to what they can actually do with sport in their wheelchairs. This film is not rated. It came out in 2012, and originally it was made for television, but now it is streamable. The director is Tom Whitby. The key actors are Eddie Marsan, George McKay, and Lee Quinn. You can find it on Amazon Prime under the PBS Masterpiece Collection, and it's free with a free trial or subscription. So the director, Tom Whitby, is known for directing television, especially series including Bramwell and Shameless. In terms of the actors, George McKay is known for the films Captain Fantastic and Peter Pan. Lee Quinn is known for the movies 8 Minutes Idle and I Am Me. And Eddie Marsan is known for the films Vice, Concussion, War Horse, and V for Vendetta. What I like about this film and why I recommend it is it's a piece of little-known history that has a profound effect on how people would see and treat paraplegics in the future. I found it very eye-opening. The second film on my list is called On a Clear Day. You'd like this movie if you like comedic British films. So this is considered a comedy, a drama, and a romance. So, to give you a brief summary, after being laid off from his job, a middle-aged man decides to swim the English Channel to help him regain his self-confidence. This film is rated PG-13, and it originally came out in 2005. It's actually won some awards. It has won the BAFTA Scotland Award for Best Film and Best Screenplay. The screenplay was written by Alex Rose. And it was also nominated for Best Director and the Audience Award. The director is Gaby Dalal, and the actors are Peter Mullen, Brenda Blethyn, and Billy Boyd. And you can catch this film on Amazon Prime for a small fee. So, the director, Gaby Dalal, is also known for the film The Ride and the film Abandoned. And the actors, Peter Mullen, he's known for Trainspotting, Miss Julie, Children of Men, and Edith. Brenda Blethyn is known for A River Runs Through It, Secrets and Lies, and Atonement. And Billy Boyd is known for The Lord of the Rings and The Flying Scotsman. And what I like about this film and why I recommend it is we can all relate to feeling like a victim of our circumstances. And this film is about the human spirit and how to create a way out. Also, there are scenes from this film that have stayed with me since I first saw it. Okay, coming up onto number 3. This film is called Indian Horse. You'll like this movie if you like stories about people who struggle to move past their history, the issues with their culture, and circumstances. And this is a drama, and it's based on a novel by Richard Wagamese. It's not rated, but I would say that it's at least PG-13. It was released in 2017, and it won the Light Film Festival of 2018 for Best Canadian Fiction, and in the Calgary International Film Festival in 2017, it won Best Narrative Feature. At the Edmonton International Film Festival in 2017, it received the Audience Choice Award, among other nominations and awards. The director is Stephen S. Campanelli, and the key actors are Forrest Goodluck and Ajwawak Kapashesit. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. You can find this film on Netflix. The director, Stephen Campanelli, is also known for the films Momentum and Grand Isle. As for the actors, Forrest Goodluck was in The Revenant and Blood Quantum, and Ajwawak Kapashesit was in Once Upon a River and Indian Road Trip. What I liked about this film and why I recommend it, it's an engrossing film, and it teaches about racism in Canada in the 1970s and its impact on people. It's about a boy who gets separated from his family and ends up in an orphanage. He is a native of an Indian tribe, and it turns out that he has a skill for ice hockey. And the story is about how he tries to make a success at playing ice hockey when he's grown up, but how the demons from his past affect him. It has a tough message, but it is a really great movie to watch. 4th on my list is the film called The Bachelors. You'll like this movie if you like movies about healing and hope. It's considered a comedy and drama. And to give you a summary, after his wife prematurely dies, a grieving teacher and father relocates himself and his son to a new place and to a new private school to rebuild their lives. This film is not rated, and it came out in 2017. At the Adelaide International Youth Film Festival, it won the Best Overall Film, and at the San Diego International Film Festival, it won for Best Narrative Feature. The director and writer is Kirk Volker, and the key actors are J.K. Simmons, Julie Delpy, Odeya Rush, and Josh Wiggins. You can watch this movie for free on the platform Hoopla. Now, the director is known for the short film Decades of Love and the film Park. As for the actors, J.K. Simmons, he won Best Supporting Actor for the film Whiplash, and he's been in Juno and Thank You for Smoking. Julie Delpy has been in the films Europa Europa, Before Sunset, and 2 Days in Paris. Odeya Rush has been in the films Lady Bird, Dumplin', and Almost Friends, and Josh Wiggins has been in the films Max, Lost in the Sun, and Mean Dreams. What I like about this film and why I recommend it is it's a moving story about love and grief with great acting, and sports has a role in it providing lessons about life. The son, played by Josh Wiggins, takes up running and competes in a race that is very telling. The 5th film on my list is called The Dove, and you'll like this movie if you like coming-of-age stories and biographical stories, and if you like sailing. So this film is considered an adventure, a biography, and a drama, and it's based on the true story of Robin Lee Graham, who at the age of 16 sailed around the world alone in his 23-foot boat called the Dove. It's rated PG, and it's an hour and 45 minutes long. It was released in 1974, and at that time, it won the Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer. Joseph Bottoms played the main character. and it was a Golden Globe nominee for Best Original Song. The director is Charles Jarrett, and the key actors, as I mentioned, is Joseph Bottoms, and then also Deborah Raffin and John McLean. And you can find this film on Amazon Prime. The director, Charles Jarrett, is also known for the films Mary, Queen of Scots, The Other Side of Midnight, and Condor Man. In terms of the actors, Joseph Bottoms has been in Cloud Dancer, King of the Mountain, and Born to Race. Deborah Raffin has been in 40 Carats, Touched by Love, and Claudia. And John McLean was in The Missouri Breaks, First Blood, and Walk Like a Man. And what I like about this movie and why I recommend it is this is a true adventure that whisks you off to all kinds of places and puts you in all kinds of circumstances that you probably wouldn't normally find yourself in. And the fact that the boy was only 16 who sailed this boat around the world adds a whole other level of intrigue. The next film on my list, number 6, is called The Black Stallion. And you'll like this movie if you like movies that are shown magically through a child's eyes. It's considered an adventure, a family film, and a sports film. And to give you a brief summary, a young boy gets shipwrecked with a black stallion on a deserted island, and they befriend each other. And when they're rescued and return home, the horse comes with the boy, and he then, at home, works with a horse trainer to race the stallion against the fastest horse in the world. It's rated G, and it's just under 2 hours long. It was originally released in 1979. It won several awards. It received the Special Achievement in Sound Editing Award. It was nominated for 2 Oscars, Mickey Rooney for Best Actor in a Supporting Role, and for Best Film Editing. And it was a nominee for a Golden Globe for Best Original Score. Also, for BAFTA, Best Cinematography, and it won similar awards from different organizations. The director is Carol Ballard, and the key actors are Kelly Reno, Mickey Rooney, and Terry Garr. And according to the app Just Watch, it says this is available for free on Hoopla with subscription. This director is known for a few other films that you may have heard of, including Never Cry Wolf and Fly Away Home. In terms of the actors, Kelly Reno, who played the boy in the film, was also in the film The Black Stallion Returns and in the film Brady's Escape. Mickey Rooney was in Night at the Museum, Babe, It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World, and Breakfast at Tiffany's. And Terry Garr was in Tootsie, Dumb and Dumber, and The Escape Artist. What I like about this movie and why I recommend it is it's a very magical tale, and I like stories about horses personally, as well as underdog stories. And this meets all of those criteria. Movie number 7 on my list is called Gracie. And you'll like this movie if you like stories about changing the system so that it's more fair, especially for women. This is considered a biography, drama, and sports film. So a brief summary, Gracie is a teenage girl who has a natural ability to play soccer, and her brother unexpectedly dies, and she vows to take his place on the soccer team. And she has a battle on her hands to allow women a chance to play soccer competitively. And according to the Internet Movie Database, the story is loosely based on the lives of Elizabeth and Andrew Shue, who star as Gracie's mother and coach in the film. This is rated PG-13, and it was originally released in 2007. The director is David Guggenheim, and the key actors are Carly Schroeder as Gracie, Dermot Mulroney as Gracie's father, Elizabeth Shue as her mother, and Andrew Shue as the coach. So you should be able to see this for free, but with ads on Vudu. And it's available on other platforms as well, but for a small fee. So the director, David Guggenheim, is known for directing the documentary An Inconvenient Truth and television shows, including Deadwood, The Shield, and 24. The actor Carly Schroeder is known for movies such as Firewall and Eye of the Dolphin. Dermot Mulroney is known for the movie My Best Friend's Wedding, as well as the movie August Osage County. Elizabeth Shue is known for being in Hamlet 2, Boy King Madison, and The Karate Kid. And Andrew Shue is known for the film The Rainmaker, and he was in the TV series Melrose Place. What I like about this movie and why I recommend it is I think the actors do a great job, and I felt really energized by this story. Number 8 on my list is called Saint Ralph. And you'll like this movie if you like unusual coming-of-age stories. This is considered a comedy, drama, and a sports story, and it's the story of a Canadian high school freshman who in 1954 aims to win the Boston Marathon in hopes that it will create a miracle that helps his ill mother. It's rated PG-13, and it was released in 2005. The director and screenwriter is Michael McGowan, and the key actors are Adam Butcher, Campbell Scott, and Jennifer Tilly. You can find this on Prime Video with a subscription. And Michael McGowan, the director, is also known for TV series like Murdoch Mysteries and Northern Rescue. And the actor Adam Butcher is known for TV series including Murdoch Mysteries, Played, and Rookie Blue. Campbell Scott is known for the films The Sheltering Sky, Big Night, and Dead Again. And Jennifer Tilly is known for the films Liar Liar, Made in America, and Monsters, Inc. What I like about this film and why I recommend it is it's a good one to get wrapped up in and is realistic about how confusing being a young teen can be. Number 9 on my list is the film The Blind Side. You'll like this movie if you like movies about people overcoming their circumstances and living into their potential beyond their wildest dreams. This is considered a biography, a drama, and a sports film, and it's based on the true story of Michael Orr, a high school boy who is homeless and has been traumatized, who has been taken in by a family and went on to become an All-American football player. It's a longer movie, over 2 hours, and it's rated PG-13, and it came out in 2009. In terms of awards, Sandra Bullock won Best Actress for this film, and the film was also nominated for an Oscar for Best Motion Picture. The director is John Lee Hancock, and the actors are Quentin Aaron, Sandra Bullock, and Tim McGraw. You can find it on the platforms Freeform and Sling with subscriptions. And the director, John Lee Hancock, is known for the films The Rookie, Saving Mr. Banks, and The Highwaymen. And the actors, Quentin Aaron is known for Paranormal Movie, 1982, and Greater. Sandra Bullock is known for While You Were Sleeping, Forces of Nature, Crash, and The Lake House. And Tim McGraw is known for the films The Kingdom, Country Strong, and Tomorrowland. What I like about this movie and why I recommend it is it's an unusual story that is well acted and told, and it emphasizes the idea that anything is possible with the help of others. The last film on my list of 10 is Breaking Away, and you'll like this movie if you like coming of age and underdog stories. This is a comedy, drama, and romance, and is the story of a small-town teen who is obsessed with the cycling team from Italy, and a college girl as well. And he joins with his friends in competing with local college students at a bicycle race, where they have something to prove to themselves and others. It's rated PG-13, and it's an hour and 41 minutes long, and it was released in 1979. It received an Oscar nomination for Best Picture, Best Actress in a Supporting Role, and Director, Music, Original Song Score, and its adaptation or Best Adaptation Score. It got the Golden Globe Best Motion Picture Comedy or Musical, and it was a Golden Globe nominee for Best Director, New Star of the Year, Dennis Christopher, and Best Screenplay, and it was the winner at the BAFTA for Most Promising Newcomer, Dennis Christopher. The director is Peter Yates, and the key actors are Dennis Christopher, Dennis Quaid, Daniel Stern, and Jackie Earle Haley. You can find this film on Amazon, Redbox, Microsoft, Google Play, Apple TV, and more for a small fee. The director of this film is also known for the films Eyewitness, The Dresser, Eleni, and Suspect. In terms of the actors, many got their big break with this film. Dennis Christopher is known for Chariots of Fire, Doppelganger, and Django Unchained. Dennis Quaid is known for Our Winning Season, Stripes, The Big Easy, The Parent Trap, Smart People. Daniel Stern was in Diner, Hannah and Her Sisters, and DOA. And Jackie Earle Haley was nominated for Best Actor in The Little Children, and he was in The Bad News Bears, Watchmen, and Parkland. What I like about this movie and why I recommend it is this is a great biking movie that launched, as I said, the careers of the main characters in the film. It's the kind of film where you fall in love with the characters and the story stays a part of you for the rest of your life. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the movies Hunter and the Blue Side of Manchester, The Nomads, and Baseball and the Ballerina, as well as some of my favorite understated sports movies. Here's to these films offering you some inspiration. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Movie Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review that really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.